Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Bob Bratton, the current chairperson of the Massillon Local History and Genealogy Society. First, I want to apologize. My computer doesn't have a camera. Carol Engelhardt, our treasurer, loaned me a webcam. I was able to get the webcam to work and voila, I had video. Unfortunately, when I got the webcam to work, my audio went away. When I got the audio to come back, the video went away. So if you wonder what I look like, just think George Clooney. Today's program is presented in partnership with the Massillon Library. So I certainly want to thank Christine Bowman, the library's genealogy specialist, for all her hard work behind the scenes. Today's presentation is highlights from the Massillon Museum Archives, presented by archivist Mandy Altimus Stahl. Mandy began her Massillon Museum career in 2004. She graduated from Kent State University with a BA in History, summa cum laude with honors. Stahl has produced documentary works for the museum, such as Massillon in the Great War, Voices from the Archives, The Legacy of Steel, The Greatest Generation, and Faces of Rural America. She was plenary speaker for the Society of Ohio Archivists 2016 Spring Conference. And in 2015, she appeared on the Travel Channel's show, Mysteries at the Museum, retelling the tale of Jacob Coxy's 1894 protest march. In 2015, Stahl and her family published her grandfather's World War II prison of war memoirs, Forced March from the Bulge to Berchtesgaden. I practiced that word so many times and still got it wrong. By Major John J. Moan. Her book, Early Massillon and Lost Kendal, was published by Arcadia Publishing Images of America series in 2017. Stahl serves on the Massillon Historic Preservation Commission as a trustee on Spring Hill Historic Home Board and as treasurer and secretary for the Charity School of Kendal Foundation. In 2018, Stahl was honored to be inducted into the YWCA Canton Women's Hall of Fame. And I have often told Mandy that I think she has the best job in the world. I am looking forward to this presentation very much. So Mandy, I'm turning it over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bob. It's funny, every time I hear my bio, I'm like, oh yeah, I did a lot of stuff, but I love what I do. So I'm super excited to be here with you guys. Okay.
Archivist Zoom session, possible to still register? Question mark. We
have someone shouting into the camera. I'm not sure what that is.
No.
Christine, I don't know. So everybody, I don't know if you guys can mute your microphones maybe, just so that we're not getting a lot of that background.
So what do I do? Just watch what's going on? Pretty much.
Stuff. All right. Are we good? Okay. Cool. So if at any point in time during the program you guys have a question, feel free to unmute your microphone.
No. You look at me.
Yeah, we can't mute everyone because that would mute Mandy.
Nope, there we go. I muted, I think, who it was. All right, we'll see. So if at any point in time you guys have questions, this is not like a scripted thing that I have to focus and read in order. So feel free to ask questions or, hey, Mandy, but what about this other thing that might exist? You know, feel free to type it in the chat, ask your question over your microphone. Either way is just fine. So as I was telling Bob, this is the main section of the archives storage here at the museum. This is approximately 17,000 archival documents. We have everything from scrapbooks to Civil War letters. We have, you know, actual physical vinyl records, reel-to-reel tapes. Let's see, what else do we have? You know, a lot of organizations. So 10 Star Theater, YWCA, DAR, lots and lots of things. And then on this side, these are photographs. So there are approximately 60,000 photographs, you know, in photo albums, in glass plate negatives, daguerreotypes, amber types, tin types, postcard photos, photos like we think of photos, digital photo printouts, you know, everything in between. So most of it focuses on Massillon history, but there are some things that are, you know, beyond our community and beyond the state. And some of those items I will be sharing with you guys today. So let's start. I do have a little like cart here, so I'm trying not to give anybody any kind of vomit situation. All right, so I will start off with something that I think a lot of people seem to have and often contact me about, and I'm gonna see if I can make this stuff, things that are in shiny things never really make it great to show off. So this is a Massillon $10 bill, and we have dozens of various pieces of currency all the way up until I think the silver certificates of the 1930s. So I'm going to try and get it a little closer there. So this lovely piece is signed by the people who were in charge of the Bank of Massillon at the time. This was before everything got standardized. I believe after the Civil War, you know, they realized like giving each city and each state their own currency kind of gets confusing once you start to travel outside of your own location. So they did start to standardize where everything went. And then I will pull out. So if you think of, oh good, it's in a nice little sleeve. So you've got your nice $10 bill, which actually kind of looks like money today. Like it's not terribly far-fetched, but to go very far-fetched, we have, this is a 10 shilling note from 1773. And it was, I want to say it was Massachusetts. So a lot of people brought these things, let me pull it out of there. A lot of people brought these things with their family when they moved here to this area. So not all of this is, you know, it obviously is not from Massillon, but you know, somebody in Massillon's relatives had this lovely piece in their possession. So it's this kind of funky, tiny little note. You can tell it's been folded, so it's probably in somebody's, you know, billfold. I always like when I'm watching historic movies and they have, you know, like those giant sheets of paper that they fold over, and you know, money's gone through a lot of different types over time. So 1773.
Oh.
So I'll put him back. And so this is the thing that always kills me because I'm not a very patient person, but when you're putting things in and out of envelopes, and especially when they're from 1773, you got to take your time. So apologies for the pause, but just know that I'm taking care of your lovely artifacts here at the Massillon Museum. All right, so here's another set. Now these are the craziest because these are so very dainty. So this is from Rhode Island. This is from, I want to say it was, yep, 1808. So here's a lovely $1 piece, and it's super, it's like tissue paper. Like you flip it over, you can actually see that it's printed. And that's how you know it's like pretty well legitimate. When they use an actual printing press, you really can see it on the other side when they actually print something. So there are $1 notes and there are $5 notes. So these came from the Inman collection. I know Amy Inman had donated a lot of things. I believe Inman was involved with the water company back in the 1800s, early 1900s. All right, cool. So this one is, no, I feel like I should save that one till the end because it's crazy. We'll save the crazy one till the end. So other cool documents. So not only do we have the tiny stuff, we have the big stuff. And I have huge flat files full of hundreds of diplomas, land documents, posters, blueprints. We have 900 pairs of sets of blueprints. Yeah, there's all kinds of things that would fit into a flat file. So it's not just these boxes. There are, you know, like 20 drawers of flat files also behind me. All right, so I'm going to try and figure out the best way to do this on a Zoom call. So this is a piece of wallpaper that was on the, where is it? I have my notes. An unused sample of wallpaper from the Hall of Thomas Phillips Reed Homestead that was built in 1832 on 3rd Street. And they think that the wallpaper was probably put up in 1845, 1855, so pre-Civil War wallpaper. Was that, did somebody ask a question? Somebody sneezing into the camera? So what's so cool to me is that the colors are still so vibrant, and this is in like ridiculously amazing shape. So I'll hold that up. And it's just, it's crazy to me. I never, like, even though I work in a museum and I know better, like, I still think of the past in black and white. Like, that's still like in my brain. So like to have, you know, silver accents and bright red spots, you know, within a piece of wallpaper is just, I don't know, it's very mind boggling that is the way that is. So we have actually, I think it was probably 20 different pieces of wallpaper from various historic homes that were all here in like the early days of Massillon. So this one I thought was kind of the most ornate and interesting. So here's the wallpaper. All right, and then underneath this guy, it's definitely one of the more, of course I'm gonna need it to come up from under. There we go. Miss America. All right, so this is a document from Thomas and Richard Penn. They are grandsons of William Penn, who founded Pennsylvania. And this is all on, you know, cowhide. I want to say it was 1747 was the date of the document. There you go, you can see it. So again, not necessarily a Massillon thing, but clearly someone's relative, or maybe even just someone who was an antique collector, you know, obtained this. What I think is interesting, let me see if I can, maybe I'll tip my camera a little bit. No, don't slide. Come here, buddy. There's like a funky seal. There's always these seals on important documents. Over there we go. And what's amazing to me is that things on wood pulp, like newspapers today, are always in terrible shape, even just a week after, you know, after they're published. And, you know, things that are on cowhide and, you know, kind of rag content paper are always in better shape than anything with wood pulp. So this clearly has no wood pulp. It's not yellowed in any way. I'm gonna turn the camera down a little bit so I can get that. And there's our little funky seal. Usually to denote that it was official, and I'm assuming that that particular pattern meant something to the people in Pennsylvania that needed to see that it was official. So that is our Penn document. Yay. All right, so one of the more interesting things in researching for my early Massillon Lost Kendal book, I attempted to go through, and I got actually pretty far for 2 years. I literally went through every single box of archival material, every deed, every map, every indenture, letter that I could get my hands on that was from, you know, the pre-Civil War period. I went through. So one of the major prominent folks who was in Massillon in the early 1800s till the kind of 1870s was Kent Jarvis. And the Jarvis family had served very prominently in the Civil War, and that's how I knew who Jarvis was, but Kent Jarvis was very involved in land documents and deeds and all kinds of stuff. So when I was going through his letters and papers, there was this one called Kent Jarvis Deeds 1830s. So I was like, oh, these are probably going to be some land documents. But in and amongst all of those indentures and land documents, I had 2 sets of manumission papers, which are freedom papers for slaves. And I still haven't quite connected where they are. And I've got some people helping me to research where exactly these 2 settled. But both of these former slaves, Samuel Fuller and Matilda Ann Weaver, were from Virginia. And they, I'm not sure why are their manumission papers in the Kent Jarvis stuff? Did they hand them over? Did they use it to prove something so that they could purchase property? Like, I have no idea why are they here? So what's interesting is it does actually like describe the slaves that they are freeing. So we have a, a pretty decent description of Matilda and Samuel. Massillon served on the Underground Railroad. There were a lot of like confirmed houses, including Spring Hill. But I can't tie them to, like where they would have ended up. Like there's no document that can, tie their journey from Virginia up to here. One of the researchers did find out that Samuel and Matilda, they got married. So there is like a marriage certificate in Virginia. But how did they get here? Or did they get here? Or did they get to Ohio at all? Why do we have these? So again, that like funky seal to make it official. It's it's always so fun. It's like they made a little like paper star. It's cute. So this is kind of the ongoing research. Both of these individuals were released from their bonds of slavery in 1835. So that, unfortunately, just, in even tracking down any kind of good genealogy, the 1830s is not exactly an easy time to find records for, and especially if you're an African-American and a former slave. This is kind of the only like this, and then that marriage certificate that we found online is like the only evidence that they existed. So I want to find out more. I want to give this some context and give them, kind of their story back. So those are definitely 2 of my favorite documents in the archives. All right, let's see what else we have. All right, so we probably have, 200 postcards. Some of them are the traditional printed ones that say, look at Massillon downtown, and here's a sort of artist rendering of what it would look like at nighttime with some 30s cars. Like, that's cool. But some of them are photoreal postcards. And those are specifically, honest to goodness, photographs, on the postcard itself. Carl Spooler donated 40,000 things. His estate donated 40,000 things, from archival material to 3-dimensional things, umbrellas, kids' clothes, photographs. We have his entire slide collection up at the tippity top, tens of thousands of things. And actually, typically like 99% of the time, if you see a cool photo of historic Massillon, it originally belonged to Carl Spooler. So he donated his estate donated the entire, collection of his things in 1991 after he had passed away. If you're interested, I think there's 2 tapes that I've uploaded. Margie Vogt and Bill Dewald actually took many hours. There are 13 VHS tapes that are several hours each, where Carl Spooler actually goes through each photo in his slide collection and tells you what it is, where it was, who lived there. I have 2 digitized so far because VHS tapes are kind of slow to put into the computer, but there are 2 up on our YouTube channel if you want to see that. It's kind of interesting to hear Carl Spooler talk and walk you through some Massillon history. So this is one of Massillon's big, awesome businesses. This is the Massillon Wire Basket Company. And they specialize in like very durable baskets. What I love about this one is that it's person-sized. I don't know if I have the photo of the guy actually in it. I don't, but there is a photograph of a man who stands in there, and they actually suspend it to show like it can carry a person. Look at how durable and amazing this thing is. There is then one of the, boy, this angle is just to die for. Let's take that out of the thing. I can't handle that. There we go. So there's a nice little, now obviously this is not the big guy standing in it to show how durable it is. This is somebody trying to stuff themselves in one of the egg carrying baskets, which is lovely. So we do have several examples of those actual baskets. The baskets themselves are in the collection, but to see them at the factory is pretty great. And there are family photos. There are, like I said, 200 some photos. Those are all Massillon Wire Basket. And then one thing also that Massillon is very well known for is Russell and Company, manufacturers of steam engines that we shipped all across the world. So we have hundreds of photographs of Russell steam engines, the grounds that they were built on, the people who worked at Russell and Company by department. In like 1908, they went through and photographed absolutely every person that worked there. So that makes for a really great archive. And those are all available online. You go to massillonmuseum.org/virtual archives. That will get you to 20,000 images that are available online, including scrapbooks, newspapers, and photographs of the Russell and Company. Do we have any questions so far? Is everybody still awake? Still good? Cool. Okay. All right. So if you are ever so inclined to try to donate this item, please do not because I don't think it's awesome, but because we have an entire document box of them. The 1926 lovely ballad written by Bessie Skinner, Keep Massillon on the Map. So I'm not sure how we got all of the leftovers, but we do have an entire document box of Keep Massillon on the Map. I got the chance to sing this for a fundraiser at the Massillon Heritage Foundation, and it is quite an awesome, I will not sing it for you now because I have not prepared properly, but some of the beautiful lyrics include, of course, Bessie Skinner, she was the editor for the Massillon Independent for many years. She wrote a book in 1928, right after the centennial of the city, about Massillon history, called Once Upon a Time in Massillon. So, you know, she kind of knew what she was doing. And then this is like the, I don't know, very nostalgic, overly wordy, awesome lyrics for keeping Massillon on the map. Where once there was a wilderness, our fathers made a town. Now we have a city, a birthright to hand down. If we would make it better, we all must lend a hand, for present and for future, be Massillons to command. So standing at attention and fearing no mishap, together we march forward to keep Massillon on the map. So rally round now, brothers, there's need of brawn and brain. What our fathers did before us, we can do again. Prosperity is calling, opportunities on tap, and we are here to grasp it and keep Massillon on the map. So a lovely, wonderful thing. Feel free to play it in your own home. We have some spare copies that I'm sure we could let the library loan out if they wanted to. Let me see what else. I have like several layers of things, so I didn't have to get up. All right. Well, I guess speaking of the Massillon Heritage Foundation, based in the Women's Club. We have also, these are kind of archives because they're kind of flat, but kind of three-dimensional artifacts that kind of, it's a fine line sometimes. But we have hundreds of ribbons and buttons and badges and other things that denote, you know, various organizations and status. This is a 43rd annual reunion and 50th anniversary of the 104th OVI, taking place in 1912. I believe this was right after J. Walter McClymonds had passed away, or he had suffered a pretty nasty car accident, and then he had passed away. So there's a whole series of things with J. Walter McClymonds' portrait on various ribbons related to Civil War organizations, kind of in memoriam for him. So, cool. It's kind of a photorealistic thing. It's got this nice little pattern around the outside. This is actually another button that is pasted up on there. Oh, it's got a big giant nail in the back. That's what's holding it. That's great. So these are the kinds of things that are scary for people in museums to handle. There's a lot of things that I can stab myself on, and I'm pretty sure these are probably rusty. You know, will I get smallpox? That's not an actual thing, but I always wonder that to myself. Like, what am I going to get by touching various things? And I won't even go near the medical collection because that really does have some dangerous things if you're not paying attention. So. I did once get a piece of Civil War document in my eye. I think that's probably about the worst fate that I've suffered thus far. So we have also, in addition to all of these random papers and things, we have 3,000 books. So we have every kind of McGuffey reader that you can imagine. The local version of that written by Massillon and Thomas Harvey, the Harvey's Readers. There's all kinds of family Bibles, local cookbooks. I think St. Timothy's had put together a Massillon cookbook in the 1920s. All kinds of really cool stuff. Excuse me. But one of my favorite things are the tiniest little books in the collection. So we have various Bibles, which in researching why are they so tiny, what it appears to be is some sort of like, if a soldier has a pocket, this will like nicely go in here, and you have your Psalms ready to go if you're on the battlefield or far from home. This one happens to be in German. And I will slightly show you the teeny tiny print. So this one's in pretty great shape. I'm not sure what year that one is. Of course, it's going to be in German. Probably not going to help me. Not going to help. There's another one that's, let's see if that one has a 1829 History of the Bible. So this is a super teeny tiny. I'm not sure, again, why it's so tiny, but there's like little engravings inside and various information. So this one is, I think it's more like a cowhide. So that's starting to fall apart because any kind of organic material is kind of the first thing to go. Typically we refer to it as red rot. So like a lot of the ledgers from the city have those little red corners in their leather. And as they start to go, they kind of just like leave chunks of red everywhere, and then they smear. It's rather permanent, and you can start to ruin other things if you're, you know, if you're dragging that ledger across something else, or if it touches something else. So archives always have to be very cautious as to where they put those, how they store them. We've worked to wrap every one of ours that has red rot so that you can't accidentally, you know, smudge it onto something else. All right, and this one is a child's Life of Washington. So I'm assuming that this is the child version of the Life of Washington. So things big and small in the archives here. It's a lovely pocket edition, I guess, that you totally want to keep around with you to read about the Life of Washington all the time. So what's so cool is that they're in this nice little archival box. So, you know, you see the big boxes behind me, but I always love like the tiny miniature things that are in the collection. So, All right, let's see. All right, someone had asked when I said I was going to be doing this about Jacob Coxy, and I'm not sure which person that was that asked about that, but I do have some Coxy things here. Sorry. So set these out properly here. Of course, my nose always decides to itch once I have gloves on, so that's great. All right, so Jacob Coxy, as Bob said in my introduction, I was on the Travel Channel in 2015 talking about Jacob Coxy's 1894 March. Basically, Coxy was a businessman and a politician, and he ran for something like 30 some different offices on various green tickets, Republican tickets, independent tickets, and the only time he was ever elected was the mayor of Massillon in 1931. Sadly, he made the choice at the time when everyone was scared of communists and we were in the height of the Depression to let the communists meet here. They had, during their banquet, served potato salad out of galvanized tubs, which turns the potato salad into a toxic mixture, and 400 communists had to go to the hospital from absolute sickness. So of course, then they're all pointing fingers at each other. Oh, it must be the anti-communists, or, oh, the communists are trying to, blackmail us. And it became a whole thing, and it was a terrible decision. So he was only mayor for one term, but he had some really great ideas. Jacob Coxy wanted to see in the 1890s, there was a massive economic downturn, and he noticed that the roads on the way to Massillon were really, really awful. So he was like, hey, what if we paid unemployed workers to do public works, such as paving streets? That would be cool. So he arranged a march to go from Massillon, Ohio to Washington, D.C., literally like walked to D.C. In 1894 to deliver this bill to Congress to call attention to it. He was, basically on the front page of every newspaper for the entirety of the end of March on Easter Day, 1894, until May when they arrived in Washington, D.C. So sadly, Washington, D.C. had never seen a protest march before, because this was the very first protest march. So they kind of freaked out, thinking that, something could go awry or bad. So they kind of busted out their rule book and said, aha, the minute that he steps on the Capitol lawn, that is illegal, so we will arrest him. And they did. And they basically waited long enough that the 12,000 people who had arrived with Coxy just kind of dissipated. And then they let him out of jail. So a sad ending to a really cool idea. Basically what he suggested would eventually come true with Franklin Delano Roosevelt, his alphabet soup agencies, all the public works that would come out of the Great Depression. So way ahead of his time, and didn't always quite go about everything the right way. So he had some great ideas, but he was never really quite the famous guy that I think he wanted to be. So we have an entire shelf up here of photographs. There are mounted photographs, there are scrapbooks, then down here for correspondence and documents. We have like an entire shelf, one row of archival boxes, and then behind that, a second row of archival boxes of letters, receipts, publications about the march, family photographs, scrapbook of photos, pretty much anything that you can think of. Jacob Coxy, scholars who are working on their doctorate or books will contact us for access to those things. So it was a pretty big deal, and we have most of the documents. So this is one of the photographs of them returning. I don't think this is the 1894. I want to say this is 1914. He tried his march a couple different times, but 1894 was kind of the big one that everybody points to.
Can't see it. There we go. That's more like it.
So they typically had, reporters and actual unemployed men. What I think is funny is that his march, that he says that he marched to Washington, he was riding in a carriage most of the time. So I thought that was rather comical. But there's his wife. They've got posters everywhere. People are carrying protest signs. So all of these photographs are available online. So if you are interested in learning more, you can visit our website, massillonmuseum.org. So one of the biggest scandals, he had a cohort who was kind of dreaming up all of the theatrics of the march, Carl Brown, and Carl ran away with Jacob Coxey's daughter. So this is a portrait of Carl Brown, Coxey's daughter, and their baby. So not only did Jacob Coxey do the whole political thing, he was also, we'll call it a businessman, an inventor, interesting dude. So he had many different inventions, including electric heels that supposedly if you put them on your shoes, it would balance your electrical current. He also developed, sorry, these are gelatin silver prints. So the silver is very shiny there. There we go. He developed water wings, and then pretty much he takes those marketing materials and he puts them on every piece of letterhead that he has to advertise them, hoping that he can sell you on this cool new thing that he's doing. The other one, I couldn't find the pamphlet today. I think I had pulled it for research last month, but he also was in the 1930s selling radiated water, like radium in your water. And he was talking about the health benefits of radium in your water, which turned out to, you know, give you radiation poisoning, and people's teeth fell out and all kinds of other fun things. So we do have a pamphlet about Jacob Coxey's sunshine water. So I thought that was a kind of interesting, weird thing for him to get involved with. So pretty much if it was weird and quirky and kind of snake oily, it seems like Coxey might have had a hand in it or promoting it. So.
Coxey's quarry out here. Sandstone.
All right.
The picture
So-
of the basket company. The man in the picture that had the shirt and tie on.
All right, somebody asking a
I wish I
question.
could have seen it close up. It could have been my grandfather.
Marilyn, did you have a question, dear?
No, I was just telling my husband, you had the picture of the Massillon Basket Company,
Yeah.
and there was a gentleman in the picture with a white shirt and tie on. And I was wondering if it could have possibly been my grandfather, because he was the bookkeeper for the Massillon Basket Company at one time.
Aha. I've got George Schwarm, something Vogt, and something Klein. Those are the IDs on the back. Let's see if there's another. Clarence Schwarm and Andrew Reese. But there's several unidentifieds. Here, I'll pull it back up for you.
It's really hard to tell.
I know. Zoom is
And
not
I don't
exactly.
know, yeah, I don't know the years that he worked there, except that it probably would have been in the early 30s.
Okay, this would be, I don't even know, the early 1900s, like maybe late 1800s.
Oh, that's,
little too early.
yeah, he would have just been a kid.
What was his name?
Chester Critchfield.
Okay, I'll keep an eye out. All right, so in these 60,000 photographs, we also have daguerreotypes and ambrotypes, which are like the first photographic processes. So this is one of my favorites. Her outfit is just spectacular. It's a little hard because she's got glass, but this is Mrs. Dr. Kirkland. And that's pretty much all I know about her. I believe I found her on Find a Grave, but that doesn't give you much biographical information. So this is an ambrotype because we can see it. Basically, the way to tell a difference between a daguerreotype and an ambrotype, daguerreotypes look like mirrors, and ambrotypes are kind of visible like this. There were kind of two ways that you could get an ambrotype to work. Either you make the photograph on dark glass, or you put the clear plate that looks like a negative, but if you put it on a black background, it's visible. So there's typically like a funky piece of black paper behind these ambrotypes, which I believe this one might be as well. So this is Lila Carthus Sowers. This is actually Jack London, like the author's great grandmother. See if I can get her there. There she is. So she's got a great like 1840s, 1850s dress on. She's aged 3. So super precious. All right, and then who do we have? Oh, one of these great Civil War generals from Massillon was Major General Samuel Beatty. And he also served in the Mexican War. And we were super excited. This is a daguerreotype, so this is going to be really fun to try and get to see if we can see it, but all right. There we go. All right, that's about as good as that's gonna get. So this is Major General Samuel Beatty, looking super suave. See if we can get him closer. Oh, that mirrored effect that's just tough to get. So that's why we photograph these things and share them digitally, because this is crazy hard to do. So he was the highest ranking officer from Stark County, serving in the Civil War, and Beatty Road was named after his family. He served as the Stark County Sheriff for several years as well. So half of one of these shelves is all of the Beatty documents from the Civil War. So morning reports, letters, reports of what he requisitioned from the Confederate farms that he came across as his army was marching through their territory. All kinds of fun things. Let's see, how are we doing on time? We're doing pretty decent. All right. Oh, I can't forget my super cool document that I'm saving until the end. So this is actually a photocopy, but just to give you an idea of the cool things that we have, of course, you can see I've got marked things. I came across a random box. Yeah, it says poll books and property lists, values, etc. So this actually turns out to be the 1826 listing of lots in Massillon by number and how much each person paid, who bought it. This was a huge help for me doing research to figure out who was kind of the first person to own a lot. And sadly, that they had to note this for whatever reason they did, but it does actually denote whether or not they were African American. Unfortunately, they used a little C. But then that also helped for me to be able to say, aha, in 1826, we did have African-American property owners and here's where they lived. And especially trying to track down former slaves, fugitive slaves, who came through this area. I wanted to know where they had settled, and to help, add to that story. And then I can kind of match this with photographs that we might have in the collection. So, so that has been really great. There's West Massillon, there's Kendal. There's also like a later kind of rewritten version that was like the hand scratchy version, but then there's the kind of better written, easier to read version alphabetically. So you can kind of cross-reference if you know that like a man named Peter Brown bought a lot in the early 1800s. We can look them up by Brown or by lot. So lovely. These are actually available through our website. They're scanned and downloadable as PDFs. I'm gonna have to like send you guys all the links to all of these things because there's just so much content that I've been trying to share so that, we don't have to pull out the originals. We can just look at it digitally and, share as much information as possible. Okay, so the moment of the craziest thing, which I'm still trying to research and I'm having the hardest time. I'm not sure that anybody's going to be able to help me, but I would love it if you did. So again, in the weird more prominent members of our community bringing random things and donating them to the archives. This is an Old English document. That is what the note says. Tracing back the handwriting, it appears to be a 1200s land document from England. And it's got a funky seal that's like a sort of a half a walnut is kind of what it looks like, so I'm not sure. So this is my super cool Old English document. Have tried my darndest to try and like transcribe any one of those words. I've gotten a couple to match up with other land documents at the time, but woof, this is a tough one. So this is kind of remains a mystery, still needs more research. I'm hoping that sometime we will find out what exactly it goes to. So again, the seal to denote that it's, you know, official, but it's really like a heavy half of a walnut, which is such a weird thing. So that is kind of sat here on vellum in an envelope, and I want so badly to give him some context. So there, I think, is one of the weirdest things in the collection. So then my other weird, super old, cool thing, might be able to open it, but I'm not going to attempt to damage it. So the printing press for making books as opposed to illuminated manuscripts that had to be written by hand, the printing press, 1450s was when that became feasible. So this document, this book is from 1553. It is a botany book by Remberti Ndondine. Oh, I guess I should probably show you this kind of sweet thing. So this is a book box that keeps our books together. So it provides several layers of protection from, you know, being moved, being touched, moving from one location to another. And probably just show you the outside. So especially something from 1553, I think that warrants a book box. So it is, I wish it smelled like awesome old books, like that really great smell that you get when you've got old books, but it doesn't. It smells like mold and super old paper. But the writing inside is, there's Greek, there's like some sort of Italian, but what the cool part about this book is that all of the botany illustrations are colored in. So I'm going to get that as close as I can because I cannot open it more than that without doing any damage. So someone in the 1800s obtained this book. They colored in all of the pictures. And there are actually several pages in here that contain plant samples. So there are pressed flowers inside a few of these pages. The other plant samples that exist in the collection are from Pitcairn Island. Mayhew Folger in the early 1800s circumnavigated the globe several times and rediscovered Pitcairn Island, where the mutineers from Mutiny on the Bounty ended up, where they kind of ran away to. And the mutineers themselves took, we'll say with force, some of the native women, and they had children and families, and the women on the island rose up and actually murdered most of the mutineers. And the descendants of the mutineers and the natives on Pitcairn Island struck up a conversation with Folger after he rediscovered the island in 1809. So it's kind of this like lost story, like where did the mutineers from the Bounty go to? He discovers this island and the story of what happened to them. He strikes up a conversation and continues to kind of remain pen pals. His son then, Robert Folger, writes back and forth. So we have a few photographs of the descendants of the mutineers and plant samples from that island. So again, like never would have thought of plant samples from Pitcairn Island being here at the Massillon Museum, but they are here. Any questions so far? Okay, this is cool. All right, so I think that is pretty much all I had pulled and prepared. Does anybody have anything that they were hoping I would show, but I didn't show? Can't tell if that's somebody actually talking or not talking. Anybody got anything that they really want to see while we're here in this virtual tour of the archives?
You can type your questions as well.
Feel free. Trying to think if there's anything else in the meantime while you think about what you want to see. I guess I'll show you guys that. Oh. Really, nobody has anything that they want to see? I mean, I guess you have to kind of know what there is. So when I said that we have 40,000 negatives from the Massillon Independent, each of the boxes of negatives is by year. So typically it's like, yeah, this is January to December of 1971. And there are thousands of negatives. And so if you guys ever find a newspaper and you're like, ah, I want that photograph from the 40s to the 80s, we have those photographs. So basically I can tell you, that this photograph would have appeared in December of 1971. There were apparently some wrecks and some fires, which is pretty interesting. So this is why, negatives are incredibly difficult to show you. So this is why we take the time to digitally photograph them, and then we kind of flip them in Photoshop to positives so that we can see what is going on. All right, so is there a ribbon or a banner from Coxy's March? No, I have not ever seen specifically a ribbon. There are, what's the word I want to say? They're like pieces of paper that people would pin onto, so I guess it kind of qualifies as a ribbon. Let's see if I have one, because the Coxy collection is right over here. Because I saw one the other day. 1 second. And whoever asked, do we have things on schools? Yes, depends on what exactly you are looking for schools. Yes, we have photographs, we have diplomas, we have many things. Of course, it's not going to be in the folder that I wanted it to be in. That would be too convenient. Oh, I'm not going to be able to find it in this moment. But yes, so basically, that that 1800s dollar bill that I showed you, it's kind of like that, like a tissue paper. It has like a sketch of Coxy's head. It says "Sound Money," and then, as I understand, they would have just physically like taken a pin through that paper onto their thing, I guess, to denote that they were officially part of the Army, as far as I know. But no, I don't have any banners. I know that they obviously had some protest signs and suggestions, but I haven't seen any of those. That would be awesome to find, like a protest sign. Oh, I forgot all about. Oh, very cool. I have my great-grandfather's diaries from 1894 to 95, and he mentions Coxy's March, living in Stanton, Virginia. Yes, it was so the talk of the whole country the whole time. And we have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of newspaper clippings from across the United States that followed the march, because it was such a big deal. A lot of people were unemployed, so they wanted to see what he was going to do about it. I forgot I put this on the other side. So one of the other particularly weird things, obviously this is not archives, this is pretty three-dimensional, but one of the things that I do have, a lot of people in scrapbooks would suddenly save hair samples. So they'd have their little clippings and just stick it, you know, in the photo album next to, you know, this is Aunt Susan's hair, here's Aunt Susan's photograph. But some people took the time to then mold all of that lovely hair into a hair wreath. So we have one that is 4 feet tall. I didn't want to bring that one over here because that would be a little bit tough. But we do have, God, this glass is just tough. But we do have like floral designs. There we go. Some floral designs of lovely hair. You can see there's some blonde, there's some black in there, and they made some beautiful flowers. So again, there's one that is literally, it's a huge wreath, and it is like 4 feet tall, made by one lady over the course of a year, Josephine Durr. And yeah, that one was a little bit tough to get over there. Okay, somebody said school. So this is all of the school. We have, for whatever reason, the alumni card file. So there is like an alumni file. I think it was probably done in the 30s or 40s, probably for like the centennial of the Massillon schools existing. But obviously it's not up to date because it's on a card file. But we do have that. We have composition books. We do have an actual hand created math book from 1813 by Baruch Michener, who was teaching at the L House in Kendal. That is actually on display here at the museum on the second floor in our Massillon History Galleries right now. We do have Charity School of Kendal records back to the 1840s. I don't think there's many records that, I don't think there are any at all that exist from 1829 when they were giving classes on the second story of the Spring House on Spring Hill Farm. But that was where they started until they got a building that they could afford to build off of Wales Road, which is now a subdevelopment, but there is a stone that denotes where the school was off of Bennington, which is pretty great. But what's cool is that Christine and I and Spring Hill have actually been working together to get together, you know, basically every student who wanted to go to the Charity School of Kendal had to prove that their parents were dead, incarcerated, or were of bad morals so that they could come and get this good English education. They've become a ward of that school until they were 18. So each one of those kids had to sign an indenture that kind of tied them to the school. So there's all those indenture forms. I just discovered there was like a list of students in the ledger that Arvine Wales, as the secretary, was keeping. So technically I'm like, as the secretary and treasurer of the foundation today, there is no school. The school disbanded once public education became more readily available in the early 1900s. But today we hand out foundation funds for scholarships. So I'm kind of like carrying on, you know, almost 200 years later, Charity Roach's vision for education for kids. You know, Arvine Wales was the secretary and treasurer, so I'm now in his role. So I think that's pretty darn cool. All right, any other questions? If you have some specific, guys, I've got thousands of things to choose from, and I would be happy to pull out a box, which I know is like putting you guys on the spot, because again, that's like, there's too many possibilities. It was really hard to narrow down what I was going to show you today. Obviously, there's plenty to choose from. And while you think on that, I will look for that lovely badge from the Jacob Coxy stuff, because I saw it today. I just didn't pull it. Da, 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 da. Anyone coming up with anything? Cha, cha, cha. I think we were all just enthralled by what you already showed. Well, thank you. Ooh, anything from World War I? Armistice Day, not a whole lot. I think there's like one newspaper. We do have some photographs of the, there was the real Armistice Day, and then there was the fake Armistice Day. There is, so because the lovely influenza pandemic was happening at the time, that also posed a problem with having a giant parade where everybody in Massillon gathers together to celebrate down the street. They celebrated Armistice Day like the war was over, but it was actually before the armistice was signed. So there was the fake Armistice Day parade and then the real Armistice Day parade. So there were two parades. Hard to tell which one's which, especially in photographs. It all looks the same. But I think that's probably about, so photographs and a newspaper. Oh yes, so most of the McClymonds so wait, I'm sorry. Coxy's quarry was just north of town. I have like one photograph of it. That's kind of on my list of like things that I'd like to build is better photographs of Jacob Coxy's quarry. As far as the Women's Club goes, yes, we actually have, let's see. I could do this for the rest of the day, just for what that's worth. Like throwing out random questions, pulling out random cool things. So one of the Russell and McClymonds descendants did actually send us all of the daguerreotypes and ambrotypes of the McClymonds and the Russells. There's actually a couple of those on display right now on the second floor, but this is all of their papers, there's photographs, there's you know, school documents, all kinds of things. So Russell and McClymonds families, yes. There is a lot of that collection at the Women's Club. Also some in the Heritage Foundation collection. So for what that's worth, they've got a lot there as well. I think a lot of things for like personal stuff, like Jay Walter's Civil War items, part of his sash is there. Yes, Coxy's quarry, he was actually like more heavily involved in Mount Vernon, Ohio than he was up here in Massillon. His quarry was just north of town. I want to say it like Lock 3 or 4. It's whatever's between like here and Canal Fulton up Erie. It was somewhere up there. What was that called? Paul Station?
Yeah, Paul's Station.
Paul Station.
Yeah, I'm actually putting a folder together on that. So any information.
I have a few thousand documents, so let me know what you need. Oh, there you go. Yep, Paul Station. Sorry, I'm scrolling back through as I'm doing anything. Let's see. Just gotta flip through one time and see if it's in here. Jacob Coxy, badges.
Coxy's quarry.
That's what she was talking about.
Dearborn Independent. Aha. Yes. See, and that's why it pays to pay weird attention. Okay, so this is supposedly, I believe, the lovely. Let's see if I can even get that to show up. The badge that they would have pasted on. Kind of looks like receipt paper, like horrible, really thin receipt paper. But he really focused on his monetary plan and. You know, bonds with zero interest, and he had a whole bunch of things. It's just the public works is really what we focus on because, you know, he was so far ahead of his time. So I don't know, whatever that is. It's like size of my hand, I guess. So just pin that on and lo and behold, you are one of the marchers. Let's see, since I'm in that folder, we do have, and we have reproduced, and I think this is on the website as well, but they did have an actual booklet that showed all of the locations that they actually stopped and when they got there. I know all this plastic reflection is just killing me here, sorry. Don't specifically see Virginia, I see Maryland, but I'm sure everyone in the country theoretically knew. When I talked about Carl Brown being his kind of, his sidekick who came up with all of the creative ideas, Carl Brown put himself into all of the advertising as if he were Jesus. There was something, and I'm still a little bit confused as to how this works, but suppose like Carl Brown was the body of Jesus and Coxy was the brain of Jesus, and they were coming to deliver the good word to those folks in Washington. And I'm still a little confused as to how it took a strange religious bent when like they were just looking for public works and roads to be fixed. So, Rosalind, great question. So sadly, Rudy had to hop off the call. But for the most part, like the gangster era was kind of mostly on Columbia Heights. There was plenty of corruption and things downtown, you know, with various police chiefs resigning. Joe Herrick actually recently donated a lot of his police files. So we have, sadly, we have two scrapbooks that show a lot of photos of crime scenes that you can't unsee once you see them, autopsies and all kinds of things. So there are some files of some gangland violence. Wouldn't recommend ever requesting that. I would say probably from that era, the coolest thing is the prohibition prescriptions, where you couldn't drink alcohol, you couldn't obtain alcohol unless it was for medicinal purposes, kind of like marijuana is today. So we do have like prescriptions for alcohol, you know, take one ounce every 6 hours for nerves. I don't know, but there were certain doctors that would sign off on that. So. I can't imagine getting a prescription for alcohol. That just seems so crazy, but it was the law of the land. Oh, and yes, Christine, you're correct. His Coxy's son was named Legal Tender. What I love is that there were several illegitimate children by Coxy. I still haven't tracked them quite all down, but I actually have a certificate of bastardry for one of his sons, which is an odd thing to have. All right, any other questions? Thoughts? Weird things, random things.
Okay, I think we're good.
Cool. Okay, it's after 2 o'clock, so I'm sure you guys are good. Obviously, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, email me. You know, our website is there. It's got a lot of resources. You can search on our website, or as I said, massillonmuseum.org/virtual archives. There are more than 20,000 images available. Everything from high schools to churches to businesses, newspapers, back to the 1830s. So lots of cool stuff.
Thank you for sharing.
You're very welcome. Oh, how many items does the collection have now? Well, it's always changing, Kim. So somewhere in the range of 100,000. And we get donations all the time. And of course, this is all just this stuff. There's, you know, an entire collection storage facility behind me that includes furniture, dresses, fans, umbrellas, shoes, flags, rolled quilts, paintings, American Indian artifacts, salt and pepper shakers, Victrolas, sculptures, pottery, dishware, businesses, items with their name printed on it, typewriters. there's so many cool things. Oh, vacuum cleaners, like an old Hoover. That one's pretty great. So I'm just the paper and photo person. So these are the things that I care for. Cool.
Well, thank you, Mandy. That was great. I learned a lot.
Yay. Yes, Rosalind, yeah, there's a medical collection partially from doctors, like local doctors' offices, where they were like, we bought our own tools, and so we're going to save them and donate them to the museum one day. There's also the part of the Affinity Hospital, like throughout time, the city hospital stuff, but most of it is from the School of Nursing. So in 1986, when the school, Massillon School of Nursing closed, all of those things came here, which included actual things that were used, mostly teaching aids, a lot of weird, like disembodied pelvises and fetuses to practice how to deliver a baby. They've got like the weird, like anatomical thing that's like sliced in half. So then you've got like half of you get to see where all the organs are. Like, I'm good. I'm good. I get creeped out by choking Charlie, who you're supposed to practice the Heimlich maneuver on. I just, it's an interesting and spooky collection. I'm fine with the hair wreath, but I'm not okay with that. Yeah, we do have, the only thing we have from the state hospital are photographs. So I get at least 100 requests for this every single year. And I always feel so bad because there's literally nothing that I can do. In all of this magic here, there is no records from the Massillon State Hospital. All of those would have stayed with the hospital, would have transferred to the organization that took over. Eventually, because it's a state organization, went to the Ohio History Connection. They have only a few items there that relate to the hospital. And as far as I can tell, because I've talked to their archivist, you can't get in to see those archives under any circumstances, even if you can prove you are related to the person and that person is like your relative and you can prove that they're deceased, you can't get in to see these archives. So there's like so little that I can do to help genealogy research for that. So sadly, there are some things in the Heartland Behavioral Health like collection, but they refuse to let us see it or talk about it ever. So I don't know. I just have to tell people to go look out, you know, for an obituary or for a census or a newspaper article obituary. Like that's all that I can tell people to do. There's nothing there except for photographs, which photographs are at least helpful. You can tell where the amazing buildings were, where the farm was, but that's about it.
So
Do we have
one
any
more question, and we probably want to bring things to a close.
Do we have any class? We don't have class rosters, Bob, but from the Massillon School of Nursing, but we do have all of the yearbooks that were produced. We do have like school, like class photographs, I think back a little bit earlier than the yearbooks were produced. And there's hundreds of photographs in that collection as well, including uniforms and, bedpans, etc. So.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mandy. Thank you for everyone for attending. This will be the official close of the presentation.
Yes, Mandy, thank you for a very fascinating and wonderful program.
Thank you, Mandy.
Yeah, you bet, guys.
That was fun.
I hope someday that you guys can come and join me in person as soon as possible. Thank you guys so much.